you may ask yourself, what are flashbacks? Okay. Flashbacks, like the word implies, right, is a quick, sudden re-experiencing of trauma. All right. Now, a type of flashback that you probably are most familiar with, that you've heard of, is the type of flashbacks experienced by war veterans, right? They suffer from PTSD, right? Now, the type of flashbacks that they have, right, are what we call full flashbacks, right? Uh, for example, I had an uncle that went to the Vietnam War, right? He was a Vietnam veteran. And he could not he could not be watching any movies that involve war, combat, or anything like that because it was just going to set off flashbacks where he will re-experience being in combat, being in the jungles of Vietnam. Uh, he used to transport artillery, right? That was his responsibility, right? So he could not, right? Because that would be the trigger, right? Any war movies, any combat type of movies would trigger his flashback and he would re-experience the sights, the sounds, right? The smells of when he was in combat, right? The combat was too much for him, right? It was too much for him to handle, right? And he became traumatized, right? So that is one example of a flashback. Now, the type of flashback that I would like to focus on today are flashbacks that are connected to childhood trauma. Okay, flashbacks of childhood trauma. Okay, now again, there are full flashbacks, right, where the adult survivor of childhood trauma could experience sights, sounds, smells, sensations, right? Bodily sensations of the trauma that took place, right? And this can overwhelm the person, okay? The person could be overwhelmed where they 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 actually may lose focus of where they are, okay? Is terribly overwhelming because they are experiencing the trauma, they are experiencing the abuse all over again, okay? It's as if it was really happening right now, okay? So that's a full flashback, okay, of childhood trauma. Okay. Now another type of flashback uh, is an emotional flashback. Okay. Now this flashback is connected to early childhood trauma. All right. The earlier years, right, of childhood trauma, where the child has been has been traumatized, right? And the trauma was too much for the child to process, right? The child did not understand what was going on. The child could not comprehend why he or she was being abused, right? It could not make any sense of it. So that event could not be saved in the child's memory like a normal event would, right? A normal event will get processed, it will get saved into our memory so we could recall it later, right? That's called an explicit memory because we can remember what happened, right? Like when I got my dog, right? When I got my dog, I remember, okay? I remember my first pet as well, right? My first pet, I remember that. Okay, I remember all the details about that. However, abuse, trauma is different. Trauma does not get stored the same way as a regular memory. Okay? Trauma is too, the word says it, traumatizing, right? The brain is overwhelmed. It doesn't know what to make of this terrible experience. The brain is thinking about fighting or fighting or flighting, right? It's thinking about what do I gotta do to survive? You know, I gotta do something to survive. My goodness, I can't get out. I want to get out, but I can't. All this is not allowing the brain to process and save the experience like it would with a normal experience. Okay, so what happens during childhood trauma, the memory is not saved, okay, it's not, it's not saved like a regular memory, okay, so the it's like the feelings are like they're not joined with the actual memory, okay, the feelings are there but they're not joined with the actual memory because it hasn't been saved properly, okay, so remember that a traumatic experience a child cannot handle it, it's too much, it's not saved into our memory properly, okay, and the feelings of terror are are uh kind of cut off from the experience, you know, and that is kind of like it's also like a protective thing that the brain does, right? uh so we could kind of, you know, separate ourselves from the experience, from the feelings, so they kind of like get separated, all right, but the point is that the brain cannot handle it, so it does not, save it properly, okay, so now that we have this trauma, right, that was not saved properly, okay, so what happens as we grow up, right, we become adults, and like all adults we have our challenges in life, we have our struggles in life, right, we have the good and we have the challenges, right, now what happens when we have some type of argument with somebody, right? Uh, what happens? Say for example, right? I have an argument with someone, right? Someone is not happy with me, right? For some reason, they're not happy with me, right? And they get angry at me, right? And I notice they're angry at me, right? That is a trigger for me, right? That anger is a trigger which causes me to re experience when my mother was angry at me, which was basically all the time, right? And when she was angry with me, there were there was more than anger as well, right? There was physical abuse, there was verbal abuse, emotional, psychological abuse. Uh, so all those feelings that I felt with my mother, right? were terror, shame, sadness, and anger. When somebody in the present moment is angry at me for some reason, I'm going to feel all those emotions. I'm going to relive the trauma. I'm going to relive the times that my mother was angry at me and what she did, how she reacted to that anger. Okay? So when somebody's angry with me right now, is going to trigger, that's my trigger for reliving my trauma with my angry mother. Okay? Now, why is emotional flashbacks? Why are they so confusing? Okay? Well, they're confusing because I don't remember. I'm not, when I feel them, I'm not thinking about my mother, right? When I feel them, when the person's angry at me, they look at me in a very angry look, and it triggers my feelings, my flashback, my emotion from my trauma. I don't think about my mother. I'm just feeling the emotions of shame, guilt, anger, sadness, fear. I'm feeling all the feelings, but I'm not thinking about my mother. I'm not thinking about what she did to me. Okay? Because the trauma has not been processed. Okay? That's why the feelings and the trauma are not in the same place. Okay? Because the trauma has not been processed, right? I have not sat down and really thought about what my mother did. I have not really thought about how she made me feel, right? How she really affected me. You know, I have not processed that trauma. So that's why I get these emotional triggers. Okay? And since I'm not thinking about my mother when I get these feelings, I'm thinking that this person that's angry at me is causing the shame, the anger, the fear, right? The sadness, right? The inadequacy. I'm thinking this person that's mad at me now is causing those feelings, but they're not causing those feelings. They're only triggering the feelings that I already have inside from my childhood trauma. Okay? The one that caused those feelings was my mother. Okay? So, survivors of child abuse, right? We live with these flashbacks, right? They are constant, right? They keep us, right? We want to do things, we don't do them because we're afraid these flashbacks are going to be triggered. Because one, when you're abused, you're obviously abused by a person or more than one person, right? So that makes people in general potential triggers for flashbacks. Okay? So people that are abused, right, like myself, that were abused, we do one or two things, right? One or two things. We either stay away from people, right? Because we know that people can be a flashback, right? If a person is disrespectful, that could be a flashback. If a person is mean, that could be a flashback. All right? If a person is dishonest, that could be a flashback, right? And we feel these very powerful emotions, right? So we either stay away from people to avoid flashbacks, or we stay with people, but we are constant a constant strife, right? Constant arguing with people. There's constant problems with people, right? We either stay away or we're in constant, having constant um, um, antagonistic relationship with people. Okay? Because flashbacks, they're triggered, right? They're triggered. We either stay and fight with them and argue with them, you know. Our flashbacks got the emotional flashback got, I'm sorry, our emotional flashbacks got triggered. So we either stay and argue or we stay away. Okay? Um, so now that we understand these powerful feelings, what do we do about it? Okay, the first thing is to know it is a flashback that you're having. Okay, know that you're having a flashback. Okay, how do you know you're having a flashback? Be mindful, right? Be mindful. That means pay attention to what you're feeling, right? And pay attention to what's going on around you. If somebody's mad at me and I'm feeling shame, I'm feeling fear, I'm going to think, if I'm mindful, okay, these feelings are not are not rational, they're not adequate. I shouldn't feel any shame for this person. They're mad at me. You know, that's them, right? I don't have anything to feel shame about, right? If I know my feelings are uh, overblown, exaggerated, I know I'm having a flashback. All right? So if the feelings that I'm having, the reaction that I'm having at the situation is overblown, okay, and I know this because I'm mindful, I pay attention, then I know I'm having a flashback, okay? I know I'm having an emotional flashback. Because remember, emotional flashbacks, you don't remember the event, just the feelings. And it's not that you remember, you relive it. So you relive the feelings, but you don't remember any event connected to the feeling. So you think is the situation that's happening now. You confuse it for that. All right. So having a flashback, what do I do? Okay, what do I do? Well, I could tell myself I am safe now. Okay, I am I am an adult. Okay, I know how to take care of myself. I know how to keep myself safe. I'm an adult. I'm a man. I'm an adult. Or in case of a woman, I'm a grown woman. I could take care of myself. Okay? Remind yourself because you're reminding your inner child that you are taking care of him or her. That you are a man or a grown woman now. You're a man or a woman now, and you will take care of your inner child. Okay? So remind yourself of where you are in life and how you take care of yourself now, and you do a very good job at taking care of yourself. Okay? Other things you can do, all right, is pay attention to your senses, all right? Your sight. Look around. Notice patterns. Notice a picture. Notice the sky, the clouds, the flowers, the birds, right? Look what's going on around you, right? Notice what you're wearing, okay? Notice, notice colors and shapes, okay? Also, your hearing. What are you hearing? You're hearing something. Pay attention to what you're hearing. Maybe turn on some music, okay? And maybe hear your favorite song. Or you smell. Maybe you can smell a nice flowers if they're around you. Or if you have some perfume, spray a little perfume and smell it and smell how good it smells, right? And texture, okay? Touch something soft. You have something maybe you could squeeze, right? Or you have a soft blanket. you could rub the soft blanket, right? So, and that's to help you come out of that flashback, okay? You want to come out of that flashback that you're feeling, that terrible feeling that you are feeling, okay? Uh, okay, so now, before we have the flashback, all right, the important thing to do is to process the trauma that we have been going through, that we have gone through in our lives, right? We want to make sure that the trauma that we have experienced, we process it, we understand it, and we know what it did to us and how it made us feel, how it affected us, okay? And realize that those feelings belong in the past, right? Because we felt that way then because we were children. We couldn't feel any other way, but now we're adults. Okay? We're adults, all right? And we can take care of ourselves. We are powerful, okay? No one could make us feel like that again unless we allow them. No one can make us feel in any way. No one can without our permission, okay? Unless we allow them, okay? We tell ourselves that each and every day, okay? Because the trauma is in the subconscious, right? It's deep in there, okay? And it's something that we have to repeat. We have to repeat it every day, right? Tell ourselves, I'm a grown up. I could take care of myself. I'm okay. I'm safe. I'm okay because I'm a grown up and I'm taking care of myself. And you tell yourself that, and your child, your inner child will listen, will you have to repeat it. You have to repeat it day after day, okay? Because that's how the subconscious works, right? The subconscious works like that. You have to repeat it. Because remember, the abuse wasn't just one time, okay? The abuse was repeated, okay? And that's how the trauma was born, by repeated the repetition of the abuse, right? And then it went into our subconscious, right? It went to our subconscious, and that's where it is now. So now you have to tell yourself the opposite. I'm safe. I know how to take care of myself. I'm a grown up. I'm responsible. Okay? I'm responsible for myself. Um, I'm worthy. I'm important. Okay? I'm loved. Okay? Tell yourself the opposite of how you feel, as how you felt as a child, and you still feel now, because it's in your subconscious. Tell yourself the opposite every day, because that's how the subconscious is going to get the message. Is if you repeat it. Okay, it has to be repeated, just like the abuse was repeated. Okay, now what you tell yourself has to be repeated. Okay, and that will also help. All right, you do that before you get a flashback. All right, if you process the trauma, the flashbacks will decrease. All right, uh, and ultimately you will overcome the flashbacks. All right, and you could live a better life that you deserve. All right. Okay, very good. So that is our discussion on flashbacks. If you have any flashbacks that you experienced, please share it so other people can read it. They could learn from your experience. And if you have a way of managing your flashbacks that I didn't mention, or even if I mentioned it, go ahead and share it, please, so we could know that you do this, right? And how it works for you, all right? And if you found this discussion important, if you found it important, go ahead and like this video if you found the discussion important. Um, if if you maybe you would like to hear more topics of this kind, go ahead and subscribe. All right, so that lets me know that you're interested in me delivering more topics like this. All right. Okay, good. So I hope that you learned more about what flashbacks are, and if you do get them, now you have the power of knowledge, and you could better manage your flashbacks and ultimately overcome them altogether. All right. Okay. Well, again, it was good to have you here, and you have yourself a wonderful day. Take care. Bye bye.